You know that feeling when someone slides a piece of paper across a desk and your whole world just stops? Like everything goes quiet except for your own heartbeat pounding in your ears? That's exactly what happened when Jennifer Walsh from HR pushed that document toward me with her perfectly manicured fingers. 60% pay cut. Effective immediately. I just sat there staring at the numbers like they might rearrange themselves if I looked hard enough. I'm Garrett Reynolds, by the way. Gary to most folks. 49 years old, and up until that moment, I was the senior systems architect at TechFlow Solutions. 22 years I'd given that company. Started when we were 18 people crammed into a converted warehouse, believing we were going to revolutionize enterprise software. Hell, maybe we did for a while. I didn't lose it in that conference room. Didn't raise my voice or slam my fist on that cheap particle board table. I just smiled and said I'd need 24 hours to consider their generous offer, like a good corporate soldier, like I hadn't just been gut shot by people I'd helped build this place with. The breakdown happened in my truck in the parking garage. Sat there for maybe 45 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process how a company decides someone with 2 decades of experience is suddenly worth less than half what they paid him yesterday, because that's what it was. $125,000 down to $50,000. You do that math and tell me it doesn't feel personal. See, my daughter Sophie is 17. Smart as a whip, wants to study engineering at Cal Poly. That's not cheap, and her college fund took a hit when her mother and I divorced 3 years back. Sarah moved to Portland with some yoga instructor who talks about chakras and energy fields. Left me with the mortgage, the college planning, and a teenager who still asks why mom had to go find herself 2,000 miles away. Let me back up. TechFlow wasn't always called TechFlow. We started as DataBridge Solutions back in 2001. Wade Coleman was our founder, one of those visionary types who could see around corners before anyone else knew there was a corner. I was employee number 12, brought in to handle the back-end architecture for our main platform. Those early years were something special. Pizza at midnight, coding sessions that lasted until dawn, the whole startup dream. I wasn't just building software. I was building the foundation everything else stood on. By year 5, I had my hands in every major client system we supported. By year 10, I was the guy they called when something broke at 3 a.m. By year 15, I was basically running the technical side while Wade handled the business development. The architecture I built wasn't just code. It was enterprise-grade distributed systems handling millions of transactions daily. When Westfield Industries needed their legacy mainframe integrated with modern APIs, I designed the middleware that made it possible. When Alpine Solutions required 99.9% uptime for their financial processing, I architected the redundancy systems that delivered it. This wasn't widget development. This was mission-critical infrastructure that kept multi-million-dollar operations running. Then Apex Corporation showed up with their acquisition offer. Wade called an all-hands meeting in our little cafeteria, standing up there with this forced smile, telling us how exciting this next chapter was going to be, how Apex's resources would help us scale our vision to the next level. Everyone applauding while I sat there wondering why Wade couldn't look any of us in the eye during his speech. Turns out Wade walked away with $4.2 million, fully vested, golden parachute, the whole package. The rest of us? Our equity got restructured with new vesting schedules that basically reset the clock. 22 years of sweat equity reduced to maybe $30,000 spread over another 4 years. First 6 months after the acquisition weren't terrible. New email signatures, different procedures, more meetings with people who used words like synergies and optimization. But I still had my team, my projects, my salary. I kept telling myself things would settle down. Then the efficiency reviews started. They called them redundancy assessments, like that made it sound less like an execution list. Started with the younger folks, easier to cut loose without severance complications. Then, middle management. Each round came with a company-wide email about streamlining operations and leveraging core competencies. Each round meant another empty desk the next morning. My team went from 8 people to 3. Our project load didn't decrease. If anything, it got heavier as we absorbed work from the departed teams. I was pulling 70-hour weeks, taking calls at 2 a.m. when systems crashed, troubleshooting database performance issues that would cripple client operations if not fixed immediately. Sophie started asking why I was always on my laptop, why I looked so tired all the time, why I couldn't come to her robotics competitions anymore. Still, I figured I was safe. I was managing the infrastructure for clients that brought in 65% of our revenue. These weren't just accounts. They were systems I'd personally architected, databases I'd optimized, integration protocols I'd designed from scratch. The legacy code base that ran their core operations? I wrote most of it. The disaster recovery procedures that had saved them millions when their data center flooded 2 years back? That was my playbook. They needed me. At least that's what I told myself right up until Jennifer Walsh scheduled that quick alignment discussion. Should have known something was wrong when I walked in and saw Lance Morrison sitting there. Lance, with his MBA from Wharton and his designer glasses, sent from Apex Corporate to optimize the acquisition integration. Guy was maybe 28. Looked like he'd never written a line of code in his life. But somehow he was now making decisions about technical architecture that had taken me decades to master. "Gary," he said, never called me Garrett. "We've been analyzing the organizational structure and we see an opportunity to realign your compensation with current market standards." Market standards. Like I was some commodity they'd priced wrong at a yard sale. Jennifer slid the paper across. The new salary was right there in bold. $50,000, down from $125,000. "This reflects the evolving nature of your role," Lance continued, like he was doing me a favor. "We're centralizing most architecture functions at headquarters. You'll be transitioning to more of a regional implementation support position. Translation: we're taking your authority, your projects, and most of your paycheck, but we still need you to keep the lights on while we figure out how to replace you with someone in Bangladesh who'll work for peanuts. You'll maintain oversight of current client systems during the transition period," Jennifer added, not meeting my eyes. "We understand this is a significant change, so we need your decision by tomorrow. If this new structure doesn't align with your goals, we'll need to begin immediately searching for someone more suited to the role. Someone cheaper," she meant. Someone desperate. They knew about Sophie's college plans. They knew about my mortgage payments. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a calculated execution designed to make me quit without paying severance. "I need 24 hours, I said, keeping my voice level despite the rage building in my chest. "I have some questions about the transition timeline and reporting structure." Lance nodded, pleased with my professionalism. Jennifer looked relieved I wasn't making a scene. They probably expected me to just take it. Another old-timer who'd roll over rather than fight. I don't remember walking back to my desk. Don't remember packing up my laptop or clearing out my coffee mug. I just remember sitting in my truck, hands shaking, wondering how I was going to tell Sophie that college might have to wait a few more years. That's when my phone rang. Ryan Foster, my old colleague who'd left TechFlow about 8 months earlier to join Nexus Systems. I almost didn't answer. Didn't feel like pretending everything was fine. "Gary," he said, "I've been trying to reach you all week. Have you checked your LinkedIn messages?" I hadn't. Too busy keeping client systems running and putting out fires that Lance's optimization strategies had created. The guy had suggested we could save money by reducing database backup frequency. I'd spent 3 hours explaining why that would be catastrophic before he finally backed down. "Listen, I'm at Nexus now. You know they're Apex's biggest competitor in the enterprise space, right? My boss Todd has been asking about you specifically. We need someone with your architectural experience. Would you be open to a conversation?" I looked through my windshield at the TechFlow building at the Apex logo they'd slapped over our original sign like a corporate colonization flag. Thought about Lance and his market standards. Thought about Wade Coleman, probably sipping drinks on some beach in Malibu with his $4.2 million. "Actually," I said, "tonight would be perfect." I drove home in a daze, mind racing. I wasn't naive. I knew what calling Apex's biggest competitor would mean. There'd be no going back. But they'd already decided I was disposable. What exactly did I owe them at this point? After Sophie went to bed, I pulled out my employment contract. Spent an hour going through the fine print with a magnifying glass. No non-compete clause. TechFlow had been too small and idealistic when I joined to bother with those restrictive agreements. Apex had updated contracts for newer hires but hadn't gotten around to us legacy employees yet. Their legal oversight was about to become my golden opportunity. At 9:30, I called Ryan back. "Can you set up a meeting with Todd tomorrow morning? Before I have to give these people my answer about something." "That bad?" he asked. "Worse. They want to cut my salary by 60% but keep all my responsibilities. Actually, they're adding more. They want me to train offshore replacements while pretending it's a promotion." Ryan was quiet for a moment. Those idiots have no idea what you're worth. Give me 15 minutes. I'm texting Todd right now. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Gary, this is Todd Pierce from Nexus. Ryan tells me we need to meet first thing tomorrow morning. His voice was direct, no corporate nonsense. Just straight business talk from someone who understood the technical side. Yes, I said. I think we might be able to help each other. I'm guessing Apex is finally doing their post-acquisition house cleaning. Something like that. How's 7:30 a.m.? I can meet you at Murphy's Diner, away from both our offices. Ryan says you have a decision to make tomorrow. 7:30 works perfectly. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, staring at nothing. Was I really doing this? Was I really about to jump ship to the competition? But it wasn't a ship anymore, was it? It was a sinking vessel, and Apex was throwing people overboard to save themselves weight. I opened my laptop and pulled up my project files, not the official documentation that belonged to the company, but my personal notes. 22 years of architectural decisions, system integrations, performance optimization tricks, client pain points that only I knew how to solve. Knowledge that wasn't confidential exactly, but was incredibly valuable. Very valuable. The database schemas I'd designed could handle 10 times the load of anything their offshore team could build. The integration protocols I'd developed had saved clients millions in downtime. The disaster recovery procedures I'd written had been tested in real emergencies and proven bulletproof. I'd built these systems. I'd earned this expertise through decades of 3 a.m. emergency calls and weekend troubleshooting sessions. Tomorrow, I was going to find out what the market really valued it at. I checked on Sophie, watching her sleep for a few minutes. Science fair ribbons on her bulletin board, calculus textbooks stacked on her desk, acceptance letter from Cal Poly's summer engineering camp pinned to her corkboard. I'm going to fix this, I whispered. And for the first time in months, I actually believed it. Didn't sleep much that night, kept thinking about what I was about to do, whether I was being impulsive, whether I was being disloyal. But loyal to what? A company that no longer existed except as a line item on Apex's quarterly report? People who saw me as nothing but overhead they could cut? By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to say to both Todd Pierce and Lance Morrison. Murphy's Diner was quiet at 7:30, just a few early commuters with coffee and newspapers. Todd was easy to spot. Tall, graying at the temples, dressed casually but well. Ryan sat next to him, gave me a small wave when he saw me. Walk in. Garrett Reynolds, Todd said, standing to shake my hand. I've heard a lot about you. From Ryan, obviously, but also from just about every client we've tried to poach from TechFlow over the years. I smiled. Well, those clients might be more open to conversations now. Todd's eyebrows raised. Is that right? Why don't you sit down and tell me exactly what's happening over there? So I did. All of it. The acquisition, the culture shift, the way they were gutting institutional knowledge while expecting the same results, the impossible workloads, the pay cut, the barely disguised plan to offshore everything within 18 months. I told them about Lance Morrison's suggestions to reduce backup frequencies and consolidate redundant systems, changes that would save money right up until they caused catastrophic failures. Todd listened without interrupting. When I finished, he glanced at Ryan, then back at me. Gary, he said, we've been waiting for you to call us for about 3 years now. That sentence hung in the air. I took a sip of coffee, buying myself time, because suddenly this wasn't just about saving my job. This was about something much bigger. What exactly does that mean? I asked. Todd leaned forward. It means we've tried to recruit you twice in the past 3 years. Each time your loyalty to TechFlow won out. But Apex doesn't deserve that loyalty. And frankly, we're prepared to make you an offer that shows exactly how much we value your expertise. He pushed a folder across the table. Inside was an offer letter. Chief Technology Officer, $140,000 base salary, 20% annual bonus potential, full health coverage, stock options, plus a $25,000 signing bonus if I could start within 2 weeks. I stared at the number. It was $15,000 more than I'd been making at TechFlow, almost 3 times what Apex was offering. Why, I asked. Why this much? Todd didn't hesitate. Because we've lost 6 major contracts to TechFlow in the past 3 years, all systems you architected. Because our research tells us that when clients work with your implementations, their uptime is 99.7% compared to an industry average of 94.2%. Because I've personally had 4 CTOs tell me they stay with TechFlow because of you. He took a sip of his coffee. You're not just a systems architect, Gary. You're a competitive advantage. one that Apex is too stupid to recognize. That's when it clicked. Here was someone who understood exactly what I brought to the table. "There's one more thing," Ryan said quietly. "Tell him, Todd." Todd nodded. "We've heard rumors that Apex is planning to move all technical operations offshore within 18 months. They're using these pay cuts to push people out so they don't have to pay severance." My stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" "Their new VP of operations came from Tecton Industries. He ran the same playbook there 2 years ago. Cut salaries, increase workloads, then announce the offshore transition once people quit or get fired for cause. 18 months. They weren't just cutting my pay, they were eliminating my position entirely. They just wanted me to train my replacement first and document all my processes so some kid in Bangalore could follow a manual. "I need to pick up my daughter from school at 3, I said. "But I can come see your office right now. I'd like to meet the team before I make a final decision." Todd smiled. "Absolutely. We'd like you to meet them too." 3 hours later, I walked back into TechFlow with a signed offer letter from Nexus in my bag and a plan forming in my mind. Their technical team was impressive. Senior engineers who actually understood enterprise architecture, not just framework jockeys. They had real problems that needed solving, and they respected the experience required to solve them properly. Lance was waiting in the conference room, looking impatient. Jennifer sat beside him with a folder marked with my name. "Gary," Lance said, not bothering to stand, "have you made your decision?" I sat down across from them, placed my hands on the table, smiled. "I have some questions first." Lance sighed dramatically. "We really need a simple yes or no today. As we explained, we're restructuring the entire technical division. I understand. But I manage infrastructure for your 10 largest clients. I'd like to know who's handling the Westfield migration next month and the Alpine contract renewal in July." Lance waved dismissively. "We'll distribute those responsibilities appropriately. That's not something you need to worry about anymore. Actually, I do worry about it. I promised Sandra Martinez at Westfield that I'd personally oversee their system integration. Kevin Brown at Alpine specifically requested my involvement in their renewal discussions. These aren't just contracts, they're relationships I've built over years. Those are company relationships, not personal ones," Lance said, his voice hardening. "Now about our offer. Is it true you're moving all technical operations offshore in 18 months? The color drained from Lance's face. Jennifer suddenly became very interested in her folder. "Where did you hear that? Is it true? That's confidential company planning? So, that's a yes." I leaned forward. "Were you planning to tell me that before or after I accepted a 60% pay cut to train my replacement? This meeting is about your current compensation package, not hypothetical future restructuring," Lance said tightly. "Do you accept the new terms or not?" I took a deep breath. Thought about Sophie. About 22 years of my life. About systems that would crash without proper maintenance because some offshore team didn't understand the legacy architecture. I quit. Lance blinked. "Excuse me?" I quit, effective immediately. He recovered quickly, his face settling into a smug smile. "Company policy requires 2 weeks' notice from senior staff." "Check my contract," I said. The original TechFlow contract that was never updated after the acquisition. Notice periods are equivalent to severance periods. Since TechFlow never offered severance beyond 1 week, that's my required notice. The smile faltered. "You'll need to transition your systems," he sputtered. "Actually, I don't. My contract also states that in the event of compensation reduction exceeding 15%, all transition requirements are waived." Wade Coleman added that clause after Jerry Williams quit and tried to hold client systems hostage for better terms. You might not remember that since you weren't here, but I helped Wade draft that language. I stood up. "Oh, and I've accepted a position with Nexus Systems. Since TechFlow never implemented non-compete agreements, and Apex never asked me to sign one, I'll be starting there Monday." Lance's face went completely blank, which was somehow more terrifying than anger would have been. "You've just made a serious mistake," he said quietly. "We'll be reviewing all your communications and client interactions. If we find even a hint of poaching or information theft, we'll bury you in litigation." "I haven't taken anything that doesn't belong to me," I said. "My expertise, though, the knowledge I've built over 22 years, that belongs to me, and I'm taking it with me." I walked out before he could respond, heart pounding. My remaining team was waiting at my desk. Maria, Devin, and Ashley, the the last survivors of what had once been 8 people. "Is it true?" Ashley asked. "You're leaving?" I nodded, seeing the fear in their eyes. They knew what was coming next. "What about us?" Devin looked terrified. He had a mortgage and 2 kids to think about. "Check your emails in an hour," I said quietly. "All of you." I packed quickly. Family photos, my world's best dad mug Sophie had given me last Father's Day, the emergency inhaler I kept for her asthma attacks, 22 years of my life in one cardboard box. Security escorted me out. "Company policy for senior departures," they said, like I was suddenly a security threat, like I hadn't built half the systems keeping their operations running. In my truck, I made 3 calls. First to Todd. "I've quit. They took it about as well as you'd expect. We'll have legal ready," he said. "Don't worry about any threats they make." Second, to Wade Coleman. He picked up on the 4th ring, sounding like he was on vacation somewhere warm. "Gary, what's wrong?" "Apex just tried to cut my salary by 60%. I quit and took a job with Nexus." Long silence. Then, "Those idiots. The acquisition wasn't supposed to go like this, but it did. And now they're threatening to sue me for accepting another job. What do you need?" "I need you to remind them that you never implemented non-competes at TechFlow because, and I quote, 'if we don't treat people well enough to make them want to stay, we deserve to lose them.'" Wade sighed. "I'll call Carl Brennan at Apex myself. This isn't right." My third call was to Sandra Martinez, CTO at Westfield Industries, our biggest client. "Gary, perfect timing. We need to accelerate the migration timeline by 3 weeks. The board is demanding faster deployment. Sandra, I'm not with TechFlow anymore. As of today." The shock in her voice was audible. "What? Where are you going?" "Nexus Systems, Todd Pierce's company." Long pause. "Is this because of the Apex acquisition? We've been worried about service quality since that happened. Response times are up 40% and we've had 3 unscheduled outages." "It is. They're making major changes, including removing me from your account." Another pause. "Without consulting us?" "Gary, this migration is critical. The board is watching personally. We specifically requested you in the contract." "I know. I'm sorry I can't see it through." "Don't be sorry. Send me your new contact info at Nexus. We need to discuss our options." By the time I picked up Sophie from school, I'd received 23 text messages and 35 emails. 10 from my former team forwarding directives from Lance about maintaining system continuity, 1 from Wade confirming he'd spoken to Carl Brennan directly. The rest from clients who'd somehow already heard I was leaving. "Dad," Sophie climbed into the truck, immediately sensing something different. "Why are you picking me up? It's Tuesday." I turned to look at her. This brilliant, determined young woman who deserved better than a father, always stressed about work, always checking his phone during dinner. "I left my job today," I said simply. Her eyes widened. "The one that makes you work all the time? The one that kept you from my robotics tournament?" My heart twisted. Of course she'd been keeping track. "Yeah, that one." "Good," she said firmly. "I didn't like how they treated you. You looked sad a lot." "I got a new job," I told her, "one that pays better and actually values what I do, and I won't miss any more competitions." She considered this seriously. "Will you be able to help me with my Cal Poly application essay?" "Front row seat for that too," I promised. "We'll make it the best engineering application they've ever seen." That night my phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Garrett Reynolds?" "Yes. This is Carl Brennan from Apex Corporation. I understand we have a situation." My blood went cold. The founder and CEO of Apex, calling me personally. "Mr. Brennan, I suppose we do. Wade Coleman called me. He's very upset about how you've been treated. I've also received calls from Sandra Martinez and Kevin Brown, both expressing concern about your departure and suggesting they may need to reconsider their vendor relationships." I waited, letting him fill the silence. "Mr. Reynolds, what would it take to bring you back to resolve this situation?" I almost laughed. "You can't be serious." "Very serious. Westfield and Alpine represent over $15 million in annual contracts. If they leave, others will follow. Our projections show it would be significantly less expensive to retain you than lose those accounts. So I'm worth keeping when it costs you millions to lose me, but not when it just disrupts my life?" "Business is business, Mr. Reynolds." "No, thank you. I've accepted a position with Nexus, one that recognized my value from the start. not just when losing me became expensive. We're prepared to match their offer, plus a substantial retention bonus. It's not about money, it's about respect. It's about 22 years dismissed without thought because some MBA decided I was outdated. You're calling now not because what happened was wrong, but because it's costing you. Long pause. What do you want then? I want you to treat the people still there better. I want you to look at what Lance Morrison is doing to that office and ask if that's really the company you want to build. No lawsuit. You have my word. As for the rest, I'll be visiting the regional office next week. 3 days later, I started at Nexus. Real office with a view. My own team of experienced engineers who actually understood enterprise architecture. Within a month, Maria and Devin had joined me. They'd quit TechFlow the day after my departure. 2 weeks after that, Sandra called. Westfield was moving to Nexus. The replacement team couldn't configure basic load balancing, she said. When I complained, they told me my expectations were unrealistic. Kevin from Alpine followed 6 weeks later, then Richardson Corp., then Dataflow Systems. By 6 months, 4 of my former top clients had switched to Nexus. Not because I recruited them, I was scrupulous about never initiating those conversations, but because relationships matter, expertise matters, and when you've spent decades proving yourself reliable, people notice when you're gone. Carl Brennan kept his word about the lawsuit, but there was complete restructuring at TechFlow. Lance Morrison was pursuing other opportunities within 2 months. The offshore transition was quietly abandoned after 3 major system failures. It's been 2 years now. I'm still at Nexus as CTO, leading a team of 15 engineers. I make more money than I ever thought possible. Most importantly, I haven't missed one of Sophie's events. She's starting at Cal Poly this fall with a partial scholarship for engineering. Her application essay about resilience and standing up for your worth apparently impressed the admissions committee. Sophie beams when she tells her friends her dad is the CTO at Nexus. Last week, she brought her robotics team to tour our offices. Watching her explain distributed systems concepts to her classmates, I realized something important. She's not just proud of what I do, she's proud of how I handled being undervalued. She learned that sometimes you have to walk away to find where you belong. Last month, I ran into Wade at a tech conference. He gave me a bear hug, told me he was proud of how things worked out. I should have protected you all better, he said, looking genuinely regretful. I thought Apex would honor their commitments about company culture. It worked out, I said. Sometimes getting pushed out is exactly what you need. The real victory wasn't the clients who followed me or Lance getting fired. It was discovering I didn't have to accept being devalued. Standing up and saying, no, I'm worth more than this, then proving it. If you're in a job that doesn't respect your experience, remember this. You have more power than you think. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at anyone. It's getting out and building something better. Your expertise has value. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Your decades of experience aren't baggage. They're your competitive advantage that younger managers will never understand until it's too late. The moment you stop accepting less than your worth is the moment your real career begins, regardless of your age.